everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Josh here. It is, what is it, December 19th, so we're sneaking up on Christmas here. But I think I have a really good educational video for you today. Might as well do something inside in the shop. It's cold outside. The bees are clustered together. And it just dawned on me the other day. I was kind of looking through my video library, and I haven't done one yet on how to render beeswax with a crock pot. And so I thought, there might be some of you out there that you're trying to figure out what to do with this old brace comb and burr comb that you've saved throughout the year, and how can you render this to make nice, beautiful, pretty wax like this. And so I'll just take you through one method. There's lots of different ways to render beeswax out there. In fact, the crock pot, I would argue, is probably one of the easiest ones. If you look back at one of the first videos I did a licensed solar wax melter review. Be sure to check that video out as well. If you don't want to use electricity and you just want to use solar power to be able to melt your wax, that is an excellent product. I really do like that. But this is probably the quickest, cleanest, and easiest way to render beeswax, what most people have at home. Now, disclaimer, please do not use your spouse's crock pot from their kitchen to do this, okay? You need to buy your own dedicated crock pot. You can find them super cheap on Amazon. Go to Walmart. You can get the cheapest of the cheap one. It does not matter. It just needs to be able to heat and work, and that's about it. I mean, you could probably find one for what, 30 bucks, 40 bucks maybe? So anyway, so looking back, I figured, hey, I need to go ahead and do a video on how to actually use this crock pot to render wax. The other option is there's like wax melters out there. If you watch my previous video, I do have the licensed wax melter that I'm embarrassed to say I got last year and haven't had a chance to try it out yet, but I plan to try that very soon. It's more industrial. It's meant to process a lot more wax than maybe what you see here. And I have a bucket of what I would call newer or pristine wax that I'm going to put into that wax melter and test that. But my point is, there's all sorts of different ways to render wax, and you just need to pick the one that's right for you. And if you want to try the crock pot method, I'm happy to take you through this step by step. I think you'll find it easy and very beneficial. So let's get started. This right here is a bunch of brace comb and burr comb that I saved throughout the year while doing hive inspections. And so whenever you get that brace comb or that burr comb, and it's really dry here, so it's trying to crumble on me. Don't just discard it, throw it in the ground. This is some old brood comb. Do you see how much darker that is? Because you can just, put a collection bag out there like I did and just throw it in the bag here and set it aside, and you'll be able to render it. Now, will it be as nice and beautiful, maybe necessarily as this? No, it'll be a little bit darker because of that darker brace comb. But I'm still going to show you how to filter out all the nasty bee parts, impurities, dirt, insects, who knows what's all in there through this process. But this is kind of an example of the pristine wax I was talking about. So this is fresh. This is brand new. The bees had recently drawn this. You can tell just by the color. It's never had any brood in it. You can tell because it doesn't have that sort of cocoon shell left behind, which is what absolutely turns this comb dark, so you can kind of see the difference in color. This is what I'll put through my wax melter, but this was a previous little bit that I did I haven't even filtered it yet. As you can see, the impurities in there, but this came from a bag like this. So you absolutely can get useful, beneficial wax out of this. I would say, again, I tend to use this for what I would sell at, say, the farmer's market, for folks at, candle makers, leather conditioning, woodworking. You probably don't need it to be this pristine, quite honest. But there's all sorts of purposes for beeswax. I just like to keep the cleaner stuff for the stuff I sell at my farmer's market, whereas this stuff I save myself, and I give this back to the bees. So all this wax here that I'm gonna from the bag that I'm gonna put in here, and this bit that I'm gonna break up to, this is all gonna go back to the bees in terms of waxing foundations. There's all sorts of ways you can give wax back to your bees if you want to. Waxing foundations is one of the more popular ones. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've got crock pot. I've got it on high, and I've already had it, quote unquote, cooking a little bit here. So the water is pretty hot. Don't worry about the purity or the quality of the water. It doesn't matter at all. So regular hot tap water, put it in your crock pot and fill it roughly half of the way up with water. Now, that's going to depend how much wax you're trying to process in a single rendering, okay? The more wax you have, the more that... I'm going to try to not sound like an engineer and a nerd here, but the more wax that you put down in here, you're going to displace that water, and that water is going to rise, and you absolutely do not want the wax and the water overflowing the top of your crock pot. So use your best judgment. You don't want to have nothing in there. You don't want to have it to the top. You want to have it to where you'll be able to put this cheesecloth and wax into the water here, and the majority of the wax will be exposed to the hot water. That's what's important. And the way that this works from a conceptual standpoint is that wax is lighter than water. So whenever it'll separate naturally. And so when you get this real hot and all mixed together, it's going to look like a brown soupy mess. You're not going to be able to tell the water from the wax. As the wax cools and the water cools down, it naturally separates, and you'll end up with a little floaty piece of wax on top here like this. And then you can just discard the water. So, all right, as you can see, this water is not clean. It's hot, but it's not clean. It's got little flakes in it. That does not matter at all. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use one of these cheesecloths, and this is just what I use. There's different mediums. I've used an old t-shirt before. That works just fine. Anything that's clothy like this, that's flexible, but that water and wax could pass through. I mean, it's not super fine mesh or anything, but you definitely want to be able to have the water and the wax pass through, because that's how the concept works. And so what I do is I just stick this cheesecloth around the crock pot, and because that water's pretty hot already, I'm going to use my hive tool. And basically, I just kind of get it wet. What I'm trying to do here is get it even all the way around, kind of get this cheesecloth saturated, but you don't want to leave any gaps like that. You don't want to allow any wax to be able to get outside of the cheesecloth. So 100% of the wax needs to be contained in this area. And so I just keep kind of pushing it down, try to get it wet. Okay. Now you can start to add your wax. And again, the wax doesn't have to be completely submerged, but the more that's in water, the quicker it's going to melt. And just do a little handful at a time, because if you were to just dump the whole thing in here, how in the world do gnats survive? This bag has been sealed for months, and a gnat just flew out of there. Anyway, don't just dump the whole bag in here. I mean, be careful, because again, you don't want this cheesecloth to just flop in and get wax on the other side of it. All right. Everything goes in there, all the junk, all that stuff. Now, to be clear, there's no propolis or very little propolis in here. Propolis is different than beeswax, so don't confuse and harvest a bunch of propolis and think you're going to put your propolis in here and get beeswax out of it. You're going to be pretty disappointed. If you want to know the difference between propolis and beeswax, Chat GPT is your friend. But I just don't have time to explain it right now, or that's really kind of the outside of the scope of this video. So I really like these cheesecloths. I've been using them for a couple years now, doing the crock pot method before I got my wax melter. And I'll put a link in the description in Amazon. These, I think they come in 10 packs. Really not that expensive, guys. Okay. I'm not going to render this one because I'm putting this back in my bucket that has my pristine wax. But this one right here, I am going to render. And so I'm just going to break it up again in little pieces. Now, I would say that this cheesecloth, for the purpose of using beeswax to give back to your bees, one pass is sufficient. More than sufficient. Absolutely sufficient. The bees will graciously take that, what you give it back to them. I would say if you want to get it really clean and pretty, like you're going to make candles out of it or anything along those lines, you might want to consider 2 passes through a cheesecloth or doing a second rendering. These cheesecloths are not so expensive that you can't use 1 or 2 of them. It's not a big deal. Plus, I'll show you a trick at the very end when it has all that junk that it strains out that's left over. The word is escaping me. What do we call that? Slum. All of the slum that's left behind. don't just throw that away either, because a lot of that can be used for fire starter for your smoker. Okay, so I have all my wax inside here that I planned for this rendering. Now, if you had more wax than this, how high could you go up? You know, you could go up really close to the top. You just don't want that water and wax to overflow. So as you push this wax down into the water, that water level is going to rise, correct? The whole concept of displacement. And so just make sure that you keep your cloth on the outside of all of this stuff. You just don't want to accidentally shove your cloth down there, because then you're just going to get junk on the outside in your water. So what else? You know what? Oh, no, that's fine. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and push all this down here, and we're just going to have to wait. So the whole point right now is to just wait for the wax to begin to obviously melt. It shouldn't take that long, especially if you already had the water pretty hot here. But of course, I'm not going to make you sit there and watch this for 15 or 20 minutes. So through the magic of cinema, we're going to go ahead and jump ahead to when all of this wax is completely melted. Okay, we're about halfway through our melt here, and generally speaking, I like to stir it a little bit or poke some of that slum down. It's important to go ahead and take this time for a safety message. So whenever you are melting wax, never, ever, ever leave melting wax unattended. This stuff is flammable. It can catch on fire. It can burn your shop, your home down, what have you. Don't let it turn into a disaster and a tragedy. If you're going to be melting wax, you need to stay next to it. Don't walk away for 30 minutes to an hour and come back. It's not worth it, folks. So just a quick safety message. So what I'm doing here is basically all around the edge of the cheesecloth, I'm kind of pushing wax and slum down into the water. So, you know, when we first started, it was piled up a little bit. You couldn't see as much wax and much water. Now you're starting to see more of that. So that allows you to go ahead and push this slum and wax further down into the water, just like that. And I kind of poke this down like this, just to try to get some of the more solid wax submerged so it can start to melt. Be very careful. You don't want this to fall all the way in, so you want to make sure all your edges stay above the rim. And then I just kind of poke this down in there. So we're about halfway through here. And just take your little stir stick, shake it, and set it aside so you can keep using it. And then, you know, put your... So I still have it on high the whole time. So it's just, again, the more that you can get the wax pressed down into the water, the quicker that hot water is going to melt the solid wax. And so we don't want this to get to like a rolling boil. It doesn't really matter that much if it does, but generally you just want it to get like where the wax is completely melted. Most of the slum is melted, and it'll look like a real thick, yucky brown soup, basically. That's what you want. And I put the lid on here because it helps retain the heat inside, and it just speeds up the process. So now we wait. So I'm going to go over here. I think I'm going to refill my coffee, and we'll be back when the wax is melted. Okay, and all of the wax has completely melted, or at least the vast majority of it. The only thing that's really left, and you can hear it sizzling or see it sizzling on the outer edge here because the water is close to boiling. As you see all this gunk right here, that's all that slum gum that we call it. There's all sorts of junk in here, from bee parts to wood splinters to, you know, look at that. Who knows what that is? So it's pretty gross and yucky in here, but that's okay. So what you want to do is, and I'm going to make some room over here because I'll show you after I get set up. I'll move the camera so you can see exactly how I do it. But bear with me while I get this in line. So okay, I think that'll work. Now what you want to do is you want to slowly, and I realize that's probably right in your way. Let me go ahead and move it until I'm ready. But, well, now it's kind of a catch-22, guys. I need to keep it in place there. But what I'm getting ready to do is lift up on all four corners of this cheesecloth, okay? to where none of the slum gum escapes back into the water, okay? There is a ton of wax mixed with water in here right now. And so hopefully you can see that color. But what I'm doing is I'm lifting up on all of this cheesecloth and bringing it together into sort of a, I don't know, a ball, right? So I'm twisting here on the top so that all of this slum, and be careful, this stuff is hot. All of this slum in here can't get out. And so it's actually starting to drain wax into the crock pot itself. Now, you probably have figured out why I have the clamp here, because I have no desire to stand here for an hour and wait for that to drain. Voila. Okay, now let me grab the camera and turn it around so you can see what I see. Okay. So this is my makeshift, I don't know, stand with a clamp to be able to hold the cheesecloth. And see, it's kind of like a gross, dirty, colored looking water. That's because all of that wax is now mixed with the water. But as this cools in here, it will separate and the wax will float on top. And so if you want, you could put some rubber gloves on or some sort of insulated gloves, obviously, so you don't burn your hand. And if you want to speed this up, you could squeeze this bag to get every bit of wax out, quicker than just letting gravity do its thing. So, but that's it. I'm going to leave this sit here just like this, I don't know, for an hour or so. And this will solidify, most of what remains behind here is going to be that slum gum. And so is there going to still be wax inside the cheesecloth here? Absolutely. You're not going to get 100%. But don't discard it. Don't throw this stuff away. At the end, you can take that slum, the actual dark slum in there. I would go ahead and discard that, although I heard somebody mention on one of Two Bees in a podcast that they even know how to use that. I'm not that frugal. Go ahead and toss that away. But this cheesecloth that is now saturated in wax is absolutely an excellent fire starter for your smoker. So we're just going to let that sit. Like I said, don't ever walk away while this is still on. So I'm going to be doing other things around the shop here for the next, 30 minutes. We'll just see how long it takes until this stops draining. Obviously, that's what you're waiting on. And so I keep this on while all the wax is still dripping out because I want it to, sort of mix well together. And then when you turn this off is when it'll start to separate. So that's it. I think it's a pretty easy process. Once this solidifies, we'll come back and then I'll kind of show you what the final product looks like, and then show you a trick. You turn it over, and typically any debris that remains is going to be on the very bottom of this pancake. And so I'll show you what to do with that. You can scrape it off or just kind of pick at it and stuff. And generally speaking, especially for the purposes of giving this wax back to the bees, I'll be done. If you're melting really nice clean wax, like what I was showing you a little bit earlier, if you're melting this and it is for the purpose of candle making or what have you, once that cools and turns into a pancake, you just repeat the process. So you would want to render it again. So fill it up with water, get the water really hot, put the cheesecloth in there, put your first rendered wax in there, let it melt again, pull the cheesecloth out, and whatever drips through that cheesecloth back into the water once it cools is going to come out absolutely gorgeous. It's going to look like, it's going to come out looking like this. These are the half-pound blocks. But yeah, that's it. That's how you can get nice, beautiful golden wax from your bees using the crockpot method. And I highly recommend whatever crockpot you choose to use to melt your wax for beekeeping, it becomes your dedicated beekeeping crockpot. Do not take your wife's crockpot or your husband's crockpot and do this and then stick it back in the kitchen. They're going to say, what the heck? But anyway. All right. So we are back the next day here, and let's go ahead and see how it turned out. So go ahead and remove your, what I call like this makeshift holder here, push it out of the way. All right, and now you can see that the cheesecloth is completely dry, hard. All the slum gum is now, I'm going to set this aside so I don't dump slum gum into the wax there, but I want to show you what this looks like. That is what is left behind. Now, again, I've been told there is a use for this. I don't use it. I throw it away. And I pull the big pieces off and then just kind of shake the rest of this off in the trash. And this cheesecloth that's left, technically you could use it again if you wanted to. For your second rendering, it'll just be a lot slower because all the cloth is clogged with wax here. But what I like to do is I just cut this up and use it for fire starter. Works really well. Burns for a little bit. Easy peasy. Okay, so let's set that aside and let's take a look at our wax. So this one broke, which is okay. Meaning the wax kind of broke apart as it was cooling. But a lot of times it comes out like that plate I showed you earlier. But look at that. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit under here. So if this was for candle making or something, I would probably just take my hive tool, start to scrape some of this off. But as far as for bee purposes, this is plenty good. Plenty good. Just take the rest of it here. It should snap off. And then this, this nasty, whatever, water that's left over, you just discard it, and that's it. Just, dump it outside. Don't throw it down your drain just because it's going to have little bits of wax in it, whatnot. Just toss it outside. But, I mean, that's, I would argue 90+% pristine wax there. Plenty good for your bees. So see how quick and easy that is? I think it's quick and easy. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you guys liked it. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Really helps me out on the channel. Christmas is right around the corner. We got 5 days, so I'm sure everybody is scrambling to get all their final Christmas shopping done and ready for the season to spend time with loved ones and family. So Merry Christmas to everyone. God bless you and your bees, and I'll see you on the next video.